I remember the shiver that ran down Diane's spine the moment she held the envelope, its cream paper whispering secrets of a past she wished to leave behind, yet could never entirely escape. In the dim light of her modest Seattle apartment, the envelope lay on the small oak table beside her sketchbook, a treasured sanctuary of dreams and designs that had sustained her through lonely nights and countless challenges. The invitation was elegantly inscribed with swirling calligraphy, but beneath its delicate surface lurked a message as sharp as a winter's frost. It read, "Dearest Diane and Ethan, you are cordially invited to celebrate with us, even if, for your benefit, you are to remain in a less conspicuous part of the evening. With all due love and respect, Laura." That single, biting line stung, its implication that Diane's humble world was unworthy of the opulence and admiration that surrounded her sister's life. Yet even as the chill of humiliation touched her heart, Diane felt an unyielding pull, a duty to family that surpassed every sorrow and slight. For years, Diane had cultivated a life built on resilience and quiet determination. As a freelance graphic designer, she transformed modest dreams into vibrant realities, her art reflecting the rugged beauty of Seattle's ever-changing skyline and stormy horizons. Her small apartment, nestled in a quaint neighborhood, was a canvas of warm lights, mismatched furniture, and the creative clutter of her trade. Here, amid the hum of a city that never ceased to inspire, she raised her brilliant and introspective son, Ethan. At 11 years old, Ethan possessed a wisdom and sensitivity far beyond his years, a quiet strength inherited in mysterious ways from a father he scarcely remembered. Together, they had weathered the turbulence of Diane's divorce from Nathan Pierce, a once influential figure whose presence, though absent, still haunted the edges of their lives. It was a past Diane rarely spoke of, shrouded in secrecy and regret. And yet, hidden within Ethan's curious gaze was a glimmer that hinted at secrets yet to be unraveled. Seattle's streets, vibrant with the pulse of creative energy and midnight rainfalls, offered a stark contrast to the sterile coldness of the invitation's words. Diane's daily life was immersed in the rich tapestry of local art galleries, busy cafes, and the gentle rhythms of neighborhood markets. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the atmosphere of elitism that awaited at Laura's forthcoming wedding. The invitation, with its calculated exclusion, not only revealed Laura's desire to keep Diane at arm's length, but also underscored the social chasm that had long separated them. Despite this, Diane's heart, tender yet resolute, could not ignore the call of family. She found herself making a choice that defied the self-doubt and whispers of inadequacy that had followed her for years. With a deep, steadying breath, Diane resolved to attend, to stand beside her daughter, to witness a moment she knew would test every fiber of her being, a moment that would unravel more than just family secrets. As the day of the wedding inched closer, Diane immersed herself in preparations with a mixture of dread and determination. She spent evenings adjusting her modest wardrobe, choosing outfits that spoke of quiet elegance rather than flamboyant extravagance, and refining her portfolio of designs that were her pride and essence. Every brushstroke in her art, every thoughtful line in her sketchbook, echoed the love and dedication she held for her son and the values she had nurtured in him. Ethan, ever observant, sensed the underlying tension in his mother's voice, but even as he murmured questions about the upcoming event, he maintained a calm confidence that belied his tender years. His responses, marked by a maturity beyond his age, hinted at a depth of secret connections that neither he nor Diane fully understood. In the sporadic moments of laughter during their quiet dinners, when the rain tapped gently on their window panes, Diane would catch a fleeting look in Ethan's eyes, a look that suggested an untold story, an ancestral legacy waiting to be rediscovered. On the eve of the wedding, as twilight painted Seattle's skyline in hues of purple and gold, Diane found herself alone with her thoughts in the silence of her apartment. The room, filled with the soft glow of a single lamp and the scattered remnants of her creative pursuits, seemed to whisper memories of laughter and loss in the same breath. She gently traced a hand over a faded photograph, a snapshot of happier times, when family bonds had been unbreakable and dreams untainted by cynicism. Questions tumbled through her mind. Could she endure the bitter stares and condescending remarks that Laura and her elite guests might hurl her way? Would this journey into a world of ostentation and pretension unsettle the delicate equilibrium she had fought so hard to maintain? Yet even as uncertainty gnawed at the edges of her resolve, a steely determination surged from within. Family, in all its messy, imperfect glory, was worth every hardship, every whispered insult, every subtle snub. Then came the final, unsettling twist that would haunt the night. As Diane prepared a small, carefully wrapped gift for Ethan, a token of their unyielding bond, a short, cryptic message arrived on her phone. The message was terse, almost imperceptible amid other notifications, but it conveyed a single sentence laden with unspoken promises. Remember, the truth about Ethan runs deeper than you know. The words stirred something within her, a resonance of pain and possibility that she had long suppressed. For in that moment, as the silence of her apartment mingled with the distant sound of approaching rain, Diane realized that the upcoming wedding was not just a reunion of glittering facades and shallow triumphs. It was the prelude to revelations that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her past, her son's heritage, and the unseen legacy of Nathan Pierce. As Diane stared out the window at the darkening rain, her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and hope. The invitation lay before her like an omen, and the cryptic message echoed the silent promise of an untold story. In that quiet, charged moment, Diane understood that the road ahead, steeped in familial duty, personal sacrifice, and mysterious heritage, would force her to confront the ghosts of yesterday and the uncertainties of tomorrow. The night pressed on, full of unasked questions and an unseen future that beckoned with dangerous allure. And as the first drops of rain tapped a steady rhythm on the glass, Diane closed her eyes, bracing herself for the storm that was soon to break through the walls of her carefully constructed world. Little did Diane know, beyond the rhythmic patter of rain and the solitude of that night, Ethan's quiet smile harbored a secret connection, a legacy intertwined with the enigmatic Nathan Pierce that would soon shake the foundations of the world she thought she knew. With every fading echo of the storm, an unspoken promise took shape in the silence, a promise that the coming hours would unveil truths buried deep in history. In that charged moment, destiny hovered on the precipice, ready to shatter the confines of a life built on fragile illusions. Secrets stirred in every trembling heartbeat. The morning of the wedding dawned bright over Seattle, its pastel sky and shimmering water reflecting the tasteful opulence of the waterfront venue. Diane and Ethan approached the grand entrance in their modest car, a stark contrast to the sleek, chauffeur-driven vehicles that lined the curb. Before them, the venue rose like a modern cathedral of glass and stone, its crystal chandeliers scattering prisms of light over designer decor and gleaming marble floors. Every detail exuded wealth, from the elaborate floral arrangements to the impeccably coordinated uniforms of the staff, each element a silent proclamation of exclusivity that underscored just how far this world was from Diane's own. As they stepped from the car, Diane clutched Ethan's hand a little tighter, her pulse quickening with every step toward the towering glass doors. Inside the grand hall, elegantly attired guests drifted through clusters of cultivated conversation. At the far end, beneath an enormous floral arch that crowned the entrance to the ceremony, stood Laura, radiant in a sleek, high-fashion gown yet sporting an expression as cold and cutting as the shards of ice that punctuated a winter's chill. The moment Diane and Ethan entered, the air thickened with condescension. Their modest ensembles, a simple yet carefully chosen dress for Diane and a neatly pressed suit for Ethan, spoke volumes amid the effortlessly chic attire of the wedding elite. Laura offered a greeting as polished as it was barbed. "Oh, Diane," she said coolly, her eyes flitting over them as if they were mere accessories in an already curated event. "I'm surprised you managed to secure a place for yourself here." Her tone not only underscored years of bitter estrangement, but also drew a few knowing smirks from nearby guests, their whispered remarks swirling like sharp paper fragments among the ambient music. Not far off, Celeste Langston, Victor's sophisticated mother, flawless in both appearance and insidious politeness, sidled over with an overly saccharine smile that barely masked the disdain in her eyes. "I do hope you'll forgive us for such unexpected company," Celeste murmured, her voice dripping with patronizing sympathy as it regarded Diane's unadorned appearance and humble means. Throughout these moments of subtle cruelty, Ethan stood by his mother's side with a quiet, resolute dignity. When Harper, an impeccably dressed, haughty teenager and Victor's niece, snickered aloud about Ethan's simple suit, remarking, "Your suit looks like a relic from a bargain bin," Ethan's cheeks softened to a faint pink as he met the teasing with calm defiance. "Sometimes," he replied evenly, "true style isn't defined by the label on your jacket." His gentle yet measured response cut through the din of whispered laughter and judging glances, his maturity silently asserting that integrity and class are matters of heart rather than haute couture. Diane, although pained by every slight and every whispered barb, clung to her inner strength. With each hushed comment and every sidelong glance, she felt the weight of judgment pressing upon her, threatening to undo the quiet pride she had built over years of struggle and perseverance. Memories of gentle evenings spent sketching in her modest Seattle apartment, the soft hum of rain on her window, the reassuring scratch of pencil on paper, warred with the hostile brilliance of this new world. Now, in a hall filled with glittering chandeliers and hushed whispers, those familiar comforts seemed painfully distant, overshadowed by a night steeped in elite derision. As the ceremony began, the orchestra of murmurs gradually yielded to the refined strains of a string quartet. Yet amid the orchestrated serenity, Diane's sensitive ears caught fragments of a conversation that chilled her. Hidden behind a silken curtain near the edge of the hall, she overheard Laura in hushed dialogue with a well-dressed associate. "This wedding is not merely a celebration," the associate confided in a low, conspiratorial tone. "It's a launch pad. Once Victor's name cements the partnership, my boutique will infiltrate the exclusive fashion market, and we can dispose of any obstacles." Laura's measured nod was accompanied by a furtive glance. "Yes," she whispered, her voice laced with ambition and malice, "and if Diane's outdated designs and unfashionable, artistic flair can be discreetly sidelined, then my brand's identity will eclipse anything she might ever dream of." Each word was a calculated strike, a confirmation that the day's events were entwined with schemes designed to marginalize not only Diane's art, but the very essence of her being. The sting of that overheard conversation surged through Diane's heart like a violent gust. Was it possible her sister's ambition extended to deliberately diminishing her legacy as an artist, a subtle erasure meant to ensure that only Laura's carefully curated image would thrive in this realm of glittering excess? The revelation struck her hard. It was a betrayal both personal and profound. As the full gravity of this manipulation sank in, a swirling mix of anger and sorrow swelled within her, reinforcing her determination to shield both her son and her integrity from the pervasive cruelty of their circumstances. Just when the emotional burden began to threaten to overwhelm her, a warm hand rested gently on Diane's shoulder. Turning, she found herself meeting the compassionate eyes of Miranda, the wedding planner whose kindness had always shone through the veneer of corporate efficiency. "I'm sorry you're having to endure this," Miranda murmured, offering a sincere, empathetic smile. "Remember, Diane, your worth is not defined by their shallow standards. You and Ethan carry a richness that transcends these pretensions." In that small moment, Miranda's quiet support rekindled a spark of hope in Diane's heart, empowering her to stand a little taller amid the tide of scorn. Throughout the ceremony, enveloped in luxurious draperies and amid impeccably set tables laden with gourmet delicacies, Diane and Ethan felt increasingly isolated. Every whispered language, every sidelong smirk reminded them of their status as outsiders. And yet, with each passing moment, the gentle resilience of their bond only grew stronger, a silent counterpoint to the relentless echoes of elitist disdain. The orchestra's music, the clink of fine china, and the soft murmur of toasts all underscored the dichotomy of a setting that celebrated wealth while demeaning those who did not fit its mold. Midway through the reception, as laughter and lively chatter filled the grand hall, Diane's wandering gaze was drawn to a decorative display near the entrance. Behind an ornate vase, almost hidden from casual view, was a slender envelope. Its presence was deliberate, as if someone had purposefully placed it to be found by the unsuspecting. With a hesitant hand, Diane reached for the envelope. For a heartbeat, the hum of celebration faded into a quiet stillness, every sound momentarily muted as she carefully broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, inscribed in elegant, looping handwriting. The note read, "The heritage you ignore might one day reshape the course of your destiny." Its message was simple yet laden with portent, a confirmation of the secret that had long whispered in the recesses of her mind regarding Ethan's past and the elusive legacy of Nathan Pierce. Diane's pulse quickened as she reviewed the cryptic words. The note awakened all the buried suspicions, the same doubts that had shadowed her since the unsettling message on that stormy night. Who could have sent this warning? Was it merely an ominous tease or a prelude to a grander revelation about Ethan's true heritage? The neat script hinted at an inheritance that far surpassed the modest existence she had known, a legacy imbued with power, recognition, and perhaps redemption. As she held the note close, her eyes swept across the room, suddenly alert to every hushed conversation and every probing gaze that might be connected to this unfolding mystery. Ethan, perceptive and steadfast, had noticed the shift in his mother's demeanor. Amid the clamor of clinking glasses and genteel laughter, his deep, understanding eyes met hers for a fleeting moment. In that silent exchange, both found comfort in knowing that they were united in this unspoken journey against a tide of cruelty. His calm smile was a quiet defiance, a reminder that true worth is measured not in lavish appearances, but in the strength of character and heart. Before Diane could fully unspool the tangled thoughts swirling in her mind, a sudden murmur rippled through the assembled guests. A tall, impeccably dressed man had stepped near the periphery of the hall, his presence commanding an almost magnetic attention. His dark, penetrating eyes swept over the crowd, pausing for a fraction of a second on Ethan. In that moment, an inexplicable tension gripped the room, a murmur of recognition and disquiet that sent shivers down Diane's spine. As the mysterious man advanced slowly into the glow of the chandeliers, his gaze seemed to carry with it hints of long-forgotten secrets and unspoken promises. His very presence disrupted the delicate balance of the elite gathering, as if heralding the arrival of a force that could shatter the carefully constructed veneer of this world. The air thrummed with anticipation. Whispers swirled like autumn leaves around him, and the steady murmur of conversation dwindled into a charged silence. In that electrifying pause, Diane's mind raced. Was this man somehow intertwined with the scheme she had overheard, a figure from the shadowy fringes of a plan masterminded by Laura? Or did his intense scrutiny hint at a connection to the secret heritage the notes so cryptically proclaimed? Amid the dazzling lights and layered conversations, an almost imperceptible ripple of destiny stirred, promising that the evening's true confrontation was yet to come. As the clock ticked and the mysterious stranger lingered on the periphery, while hushed warnings and elusive schemes braided through the festivities, Diane felt an undeniable shift in fate's course. A singular, burning question began to take shape in her heart. What price would the revelation of Ethan's true legacy demand? And could that truth, once unleashed, finally bring the redemption they both so desperately needed? In that fraught instant, as Diane clutched the mysterious note and exchanged a determined glance with Ethan, the extravagant world around her seemed to crumble into insignificance. The glittering facade of the wedding and its lofty promises of status and power were giving way to an undercurrent of revelation, a current that would soon drag secrets from the murky depths of the past into the unforgiving light of day. With every beat of her heart echoing the silent call of destiny, Diane realized that the night was far from over, and that the path to salvation was paved with truths long hidden, waiting for the precise moment to alter everything. And so, as the murmured conversation of the elite began to resume, and the enigmatic stranger continued to watch from the shadows, a single thought burned in Diane's mind with urgent clarity. The true battle for dignity and legacy had only just begun. What would be unveiled when the secrets of Ethan's heritage collided with the ruthless ambitions of this glittering world? The evening deepened as the reception progressed, the lavish venue turning into a labyrinth of whispered conversations, glittering laughter, and carefully concealed barbs. Diane moved through the crowd with deliberate, graceful steps, each footfall a quiet defiance against the stares that weighed her down. The expansive banquet hall, adorned with cascading floral arrangements and opulent crystal light fixtures, amplified the sense of alienation she felt. Every table was a microcosm of wealth and expectation, a stark contrast to the humble life Diane and Ethan knew. Even as she tried to focus on the warmth of Ethan's steady hand in hers, the remnants of earlier humiliation lingered like unshakable shadows. During the toast to the couple's future, Laura ascended to the podium with a saccharine smile that masked her true disdain. With a voice as smooth as silk and as brittle as glass, she dedicated her remarks to the glory of the union. Yet, in one calculated moment, she casually directed a dismissive comment toward Diane. "Isn't family history just fascinating?" she remarked with a bite in her tone, as if Diane's very presence was a relic from a less refined epoch. Her words rippled through a nearby cluster of elite guests, drawing snickers and condescending glances. Celeste Langston, seated regally by Laura's side, leaned in with a polite yet piercing inquiry. "I wonder if one truly belongs in such esteemed company, especially when one's contributions to the arts have become obsolete." The comment stung sharply, and for a moment, Diane's dream of simply attending among family was marred by the cruel reality of exclusion. Amidst the oppressive atmosphere, Ethan continued to exhibit a quiet dignity far beyond his years. When Harper, the perpetually smug niece known for her biting wit, ridiculed his modest attire by whispering loud enough for others to hear, "It must be so hard to be so disconnected," Ethan's eyes shone with an unspoken challenge. Instead of recoiling, he replied calmly, "True connection isn't measured by price tags, but by the stories we wear on our sleeves." His measured tone left a brief silence in the wake of his words, and even a few skeptical smiles turned to nods of respect. In that moment, Ethan's mature retort underscored the strength that had always been the quiet pillar of their lives, a strength that Laura and her clique were determined to overlook. Diane's heart pounded in her ears as she navigated between the glittering clusters of indifferent conversation. It was then, during a brief lull between musical interludes, that she stumbled upon a revelation too significant to dismiss. Behind a partially obscure display near an ornate bar, a folded document had inadvertently been left behind. With trembling fingers, Diane retrieved it, the crinkle of the paper echoing like a forbidden secret in her ears. Unfolding it slightly, she recognized portions of a design sketch, one unmistakably reminiscent of a signature pattern she had long nurtured in her own portfolio. Scribbled in the margins were notes indicating modifications, dates, and Most damning of all, a clause that tied the design directly to a forthcoming exclusive collection. It was clear Laura was orchestrating a plan to repurpose Diane's creative work, using Victor's influence to secure a dominant position in the fashion industry and, in the process, erase Diane's legacy from the narrative. The betrayal cut deeper than any public humiliation, igniting a seething mix of anger and sorrow within her. Before Diane could fully process the implications of the document, she felt the reassuring presence of Miranda beside her. The wedding planner's empathetic eyes met Diane's, and in a hushed tone, Miranda said, "I knew there was more to tonight than celebration. I've heard whispers of deals being struck behind closed doors, deals that might sacrifice genuine talent for image. You deserve better than to be cast aside like a forgotten sketch." Miranda's words, delivered with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the icy sarcasm of Laura's world, bolstered Diane's resolve. In that private moment of solidarity, Miranda confessed that she had seen Laura and her associates speaking furtively in one corner, their hushed conversation laced with business jargon that betrayed a plan to monopolize the upcoming trends, one that conveniently pushed Diane's unique designs into oblivion. As if the weight of treachery were not enough, the evening continued to test Diane's endurance. At a nearby table, a heated exchange erupted among guests about the origins of a particular design. An influential buyer, with a tone edging on condescension, remarked that true innovation was possible only within established circles. When his remark was met with derision by another guest, he pivoted sharply to include Diane in his sneer, suggesting that her modest output belonged in forgotten back alleys, not on the dazzling runways of the future. The ripple of disdain spread through the room, reinforcing the notion that Diane was an outsider in a world where style was measured in nepotism and exclusivity. Through it all, Ethan remained a pillar of calm. Halfway through the dessert course, as whispers about the stolen design circulated, Harper's mocking voice once again tried to wound. "Without the right connections, even the brightest ideas remain dim," she taunted. But Ethan, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding, quietly interjected with, "Perhaps the true luminescence lies in authenticity, not in the shallow glow of inherited privilege." His words, layered with earnest conviction, resonated with a few of the less brazen onlookers, sparking murmurs of agreement that, for a fleeting moment, challenged the prevailing elitist narrative. All the while, the mysterious man from earlier, the one whose intense gaze had fixated on Ethan, remained on the periphery. Diane watched him closely now, noticing subtle shifts, a discreet conversation with a wedding official near the backstage entrance, a brief flash of what looked like an insignia etched on his cufflink, a symbol that Jane had once described in a fragmented memory of whispered legends involving Nathan Pierce. That emblem, reminiscent of an ancient crest carried by a family of storied repute, sent a shiver down Diane's spine. Could it be that the heritage hinted at in the cryptic note was not merely a fanciful musing, but a tangible connection to a legacy that had long been obscured? The question loomed like a specter over her, intertwining with the myriad injustices of the night. As the evening chorus of clinking glasses and muted debates swelled once again, Miranda discreetly led Diane toward a quieter corner behind an arched window. There, away from prying eyes and the relentless chatter of the elite, Miranda revealed more of what she had overheard. "I've been working in this industry long enough to know when something isn't right," Miranda confided. "Laura's ambitions extend far beyond a pretty facade. I overheard her speaking with someone about leveraging Victor's empire to push a line that would, in essence, extinguish your work. I believe she's planned this all along, to erase your influence and replace it with her own, all under the guise of innovation." Miranda's words resonated deeply with Diane, each one hammering home the reality that every slight and every whispered insult was part of a far larger conspiracy. The document in her hand, The dismissive glances, and now Miranda's revelations all converged to create a mosaic of betrayal that threatened not only her artistic vision, but also her very identity. Caught between the cold cruelty of a preordained social order and the fierceness of her own convictions, Diane realized that the stakes of the night were rising to fatal proportions. As she silently reread the document, her mind raced with mounting possibilities. Was Laura's scheme merely about the takeover of a fashion empire, or did it cut even deeper, touching upon the secret legacy that Ethan harbored, one connected to a past both haunting and illustrious? The mysterious symbol, the cryptic note, and now the damning evidence in her hand pointed to a truth that had the power to upend not just the cold conventions of this elite circle, but also the very foundation of their intertwined lives. Before Diane could gather her swirling thoughts, a hushed murmur arose from the grand entrance. Heads turned, the ambient melodies faltered, and all eyes subtly shifted toward the door. The mysterious man, whose eyes had never left Ethan, moved decisively toward the gathering. His approach was measured, his presence undeniable as he advanced through the glittering throng. In that electrifying moment, the room charged with a sense of impending revelation, leaving Diane acutely aware that her next steps could unearth secrets that would shatter the carefully constructed deceptions of the night. Diane's heart thundered as the air thickened with anticipation. Every whispered remark, every dismissive smile now carried an undercurrent of meaning, warnings of a storm that was about to break. And as the mysterious man's gaze locked onto Ethan's, Diane felt the fragile walls she had built around her world start to tremble. The evidence of Laura's treachery lay in her trembling hands, and the promise of a legacy long concealed pulsed in the charged silence. Just as Diane began to piece together a plan to confront the unfolding betrayal, a sharp, resonant voice echoed from the far end of the hall, a voice that made her blood run cold and hinted that the night's concealed truths were ready to erupt into chaos. Just as Diane was beginning to understand the truth, a voice from the crowd turned everything upside down. A tremor of uncertainty coursed through the opulent reception hall as the ambient chatter and melodic strains of live strings were abruptly interrupted by a commanding voice. From a small, elevated platform near the entrance, Mr. Donovan, a respected investor and longtime patron of emerging designers, stepped forward, his expression resolute. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his tone both measured and piercing, "tonight's celebration is not merely about the union of two illustrious families. It is also a moment to confront a grievous betrayal in our midst. I have obtained evidence that certain original designs have been misappropriated and repurposed, tarnishing the very essence of creative integrity." The words fell like heavy stones onto the polished marble floor. A ripple of uneasy murmurs spread among the guests, and even the gleaming chandeliers seemed to dim as suspicion permeated the air. Diane's pulse thundered in her ears as she clutched the incriminating document hidden beneath her skirt, a contract bearing elegant signatures and unmistakable swatches of her own design. Every word on the paper confirmed her darkest fears. Laura's exalted collection was built not on her own ingenuity, but on the theft and subtle alteration of Diane's heartfelt work. Moreover, the contract hinted at deeper involvement, a clandestine link to a branch of Nathan Pierce's retail empire, suggesting that Laura's ambition was engineered to not only eliminate her artistic legacy, but also to harness a power far greater than mere fashion. Before Diane could steady herself, Mr. Donovan's gaze cut across the crowd and fixed on Laura. "True innovation," he declared, "is born of passion, authenticity, and respect for one's craft. It is unacceptable that we allow greed and deceit to eclipse the creative spirit that challenges and elevates us all." His words resonated like a clarion bell throughout the hall, forcing even the most aloof elites to confront the possibility of their own complicity in such exploitation. Laura's face, once the paragon of polished composure, betrayed a flicker of disquiet beneath her artfully applied makeup. In that charged moment, Diane's inner reserve transformed into resolute courage. With measured determination, she drew herself up and stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I have dedicated my life to art with honesty and perseverance," she said, her words clear and unwavering. "My work, and the work of every artist who has ever struggled in the shadows, deserves recognition, not obfuscation by those who use it for their own gain. I stand here, not only as a designer, but as a voice for authenticity, demanding that the truth be seen." A hush fell over the room. Eyes that once held disdain now turned in admiration, while a few sympathetic nods of approval flickered across the faces of like-minded guests. Laura, momentarily stunned by her sister's bold defiance, lowered her gaze and, with barely concealed venom, murmured, "Diane, you always clung to your naive ideals. The world is ruthless, and sometimes sacrifices must be made to secure one's future." Her quiet words, intended for those who would listen, only deepened the rift between them, revealing a chasm of ambition and betrayal that had long been widening in secret. As tension mounted, Miranda, the compassionate wedding planner who had stood by Diane's side all evening, glided over to her with an urgent sparkle in her eyes. Leaning close so as not to alert prying ears, Miranda whispered, "I have seen the emails, the recordings. Laura's new line isn't an independent creation. It is built on your designs. There are even documents linking her project with certain facets of Nathan Pierce's retail network. This isn't a mere business maneuver. It's an outright erasure of your legacy." Miranda's words solidified Diane's understanding, filling her with both sorrow and a renewed flame of determination. Not far from their private exchange, Harper, a teenager known for her acerbic wit and unwavering loyalty to the establishment, sauntered over with a smirk. "So, little man," she jeered at Ethan in a tone dripping with scorn, "where did you learn to speak so eloquently when your world is obviously cut from a thrift store cloth?" Her remark was meant to belittle, but Ethan's eyes, calm and steady, shone with an inner light. "True heritage," he responded serenely, "is forged from integrity and strength, not measured by designer labels or inherited privilege." His simple yet profound retort silenced Harper for a moment and even garnered respectful whispers from several onlookers who recognized the wisdom of his words. Meanwhile, as the chaos of revelation swirled, Diane's attention was repeatedly drawn to the mysterious man from earlier, the one whose intense gaze had relentlessly tracked Ethan throughout the evening. Now, near the fringes of the grand hall, he moved with deliberate secrecy toward a discreet wedding official. In that brief but charged encounter, Diane caught sight of a subtle detail, the emblem on his cufflink, a small, intricate design bearing a crest that resonated with legends of Nathan Pierce's forgotten legacy. Its unmistakable contours ignited in her 1,000 unspoken questions. Was this emblem a mark of a secret alliance? Did it mean that the enigmatic forces behind Nathan's empire were now stirring? Just as the room's atmosphere reached a fever pitch, a sudden commotion near the entrance shattered the uneasy calm. The lights dimmed momentarily, and the entire hall seemed to exhale as the mysterious man reemerged and advanced directly toward Diane. With deliberate calm, he extended his hand and pressed into hers a sealed envelope. His voice, low and urgent, murmured, "Your past is not a burden to hide. It is the key to your future. Prepare yourself. What is coming will reclaim what is rightfully yours." Diane's fingers closed around the envelope with a steady resolve that belied her inner storm. In that fleeting moment, she sensed that every piece of evidence, the stolen designs, the incriminating contract, the secretive symbols, was converging toward a revelation that would upend the order of this glittering charade. Across the room, the murmurs rose again, and Mr. Donovan's earlier declaration now mingled with a palpable sense of impending retribution. The mysterious envelope felt like a talisman in Diane's hand, its sealed promise of truth-stirring memories of lost nights spent sketching by lamplight in her modest apartment, and fueling the fierce love she held for both her work and her son. Amid the burgeoning chaos, the grand doors at the far end of the hall began to tremble slightly, as if in anticipation of a force long overdue. Before anyone could process the unfolding events, a formal announcement blared over the speakers, its tone somber yet electrifying. "We have an unexpected but very significant arrival." A collective gasp rippled through the room as all eyes were drawn to the towering glass doors. In that charged moment, time appeared to stand still. Every guest, regardless of their gilded status, watched in suspended silence as the thresholds of power and legacy trembled on the brink of transformation. Diane's gaze shifted between the stern faces of the elite, the determined expression on Miranda's face, and the mysterious man whose eyes still gleamed with urgent purpose. The sealed envelope in her grasp seemed to burn with the promise of revelations yet to come. In that instant, every slight insult, every whispered betrayal, and every stolen dream coalesced into a single, undeniable truth. Her art, her passion, and her very identity were about to be vindicated or shattered forever. And then, as the grand doors creaked open with a slow, deliberate motion, a figure, tall, imposing, and shrouded in an aura of both mystery and authority, stepped into the hall. The arrival sent shockwaves through the crowd. In that frozen moment of anticipation, the air itself seemed to vibrate with the promise of an upheaval that would forever change the destinies of those gathered. Diane's heart pounded with the realization that this was no ordinary guest. The presence of this enigmatic figure carried the weight of a legacy long suppressed, a legacy intertwined with her son's secret heritage and the name Nathan Pierce. As gasps and murmurs erupted anew from the assembled crowd, Diane clutched Ethan's hand tightly, realizing that the coming moments would redefine not only the fabric of this elite world, but also the very essence of who she and her son were meant to be. In that electrified, suspenseful instant, as the figure's silhouette merged with the shimmering light and the echo of history resonated in every heartbeat, the collision of past and future, truth and treachery, was inevitable. The grand glass doors, still trembling from the earlier announcement, slowly opened to reveal a tall, imposing figure bathed in the gentle glow of the chandeliers. In that hushed moment, every eye in the room fixed upon him. Clad in a tailored charcoal suit that carried an unmistakable air of authority, the man strode in with deliberate grace. His presence, the very embodiment of command, silenced the murmurs and prattle of the elite. There was no mistaking the aura of power and history that accompanied him. The man was none other than Nathan Pierce, the reclusive retail tycoon whose name had become whispered legend and whose absence had cast a long shadow over Diane's past. His arrival was not just an interruption, it was a seismic shift in the room's entire energy. Nathan's gaze roved over the assembly, pausing briefly on each face before finally resting on Laura. In a deep, resonant voice that carried both authority and quiet sorrow, he began, "Good evening. I stand before you not only as the custodian of an empire built on years of unwavering dedication and visionary passion, but also as a guardian of truth in an industry that too often rewards deception over originality." His words hung in the air, heavy and damning, as he slowly lifted a folder from under his arm. "This evening, I must clear the mists of dishonor that have tainted what should have been a celebration of union and creativity." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. As Nathan opened the folder, a series of documents spilled into the light, papers marked with signatures, dates, and most damning of all, designs unmistakably patterned after those Diane had painstakingly created. His steady voice continued, "I have become aware of transgressions committed by those who would steal from the very well of innovation. The designs employed in this new collection, purportedly conceived by the bride's trusted confidant, are, in truth, derived from the work of a humble artist whose legacy has been callously undermined. His eyes swept over Diane, who stood near the threshold of the escalating drama, her heart pounding in both disbelief and vindication. Nathan paused, letting his next words sink in like a benediction for the marginalized. These stolen designs, my friends, are not merely the property of creative industry lore. They are the very work of Diane, a woman whose passion and perseverance have long been sacrificed on the altar of superficial success. And tonight, I declare that this deception shall end. A ripple of shock and admiration passed through the guests as Nathan's declaration reverberated off the walls. The once haughty faces of Laura, Celeste, and even the smug onlookers faded into shadow beneath the weight of truth. With a measured calm that belied the storm swirling within him, Nathan stepped closer to the center of the hall. "But there is more," he continued. "My blood, my legacy, is entwined with that same creative spark, one that burns in the heart of a young boy who has patiently endured the slanders of ignorance. Ethan, my son, has been raised in the shadows of hardship and modesty, yet his spirit is destined to illuminate the very halls that now tremble with dishonor." His eyes, as piercing as they were kind, softened as he spoke directly to Ethan, who yet again met his gaze with a calm and unwavering composure. "Ethan is my heir, not because of money or entitlement, but because his integrity, courage, and inventive mind embody the true legacy of the Pierce name." The silence that followed was profound. The elite, who had once sneered at Diane and her son, now sat rapt, the realization of their complicity in a grand fraud sinking in. Laura's face, once a mask of polished beauty and calculated superiority, drained of color as she stuttered incoherently. Celeste's patronizing smirk evaporated into an expression of shock and regret. Even Harper, who had so often taunted Ethan with venomous words, looked away, his previously defiant eyes now clouded with uncertainty. Diane's heart swelled with a bittersweet triumph. For years she had borne the weight of humiliation, the sting of betrayal, and the isolation wrought by a society that prized opulence over authenticity. Now, standing in the radiant glow of truth, her art, and her very existence, was being vindicated. Yet, in that triumphant moment, Diane chose not to retaliate with bitterness. Instead, she raised her chin with quiet dignity and softly interjected, "Thank you, Nathan. I have always believed that our true worth is defined by our creativity, our love for our family, and the integrity with which we live our lives. Tonight, I reclaim my voice and my legacy, not through vengeance, but through the celebration of truth and art." Nathan's declaration, coupled with Diane's graceful acknowledgement, sent shockwaves through the reception. Mr. Donovan, clapping with genuine fervor, voiced what many had silently felt. Let this be a turning point, a reminder that creativity, honesty, and integrity mean more than the glitter of misplaced wealth. Miranda, ever the beacon of compassion and support, stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears of pride. "Diane, your talent has always been a priceless treasure, and tonight, the world finally sees that truth." Meanwhile, Ethan shifted his stance and, with a surprising cadence that belied his young years, addressed the assembly. "I have learned that authenticity is not measured in the weight of gold or the shine of labels, but in the strength of our character and the legacy of our hearts. My heritage is not a burden, it is a beacon, and tonight it shines as proof that genuine worth is never hidden." His words, simple yet profound, resonated with every soul present, drawing silent nods of approval and sparking whispered conversations of newfound respect. As the storm of revelations began to subside, Nathan turned his attention back to Laura. His tone, once measured, now carried a finality that brokered no dispute. "Laura, your ambitions were built upon the theft of creativity and the exploitation of trust. This so-called collection, a product of deceit, holds no value in the true realm of art. Your association with a network founded on integrity has been severed, and the deal you forged in the shadows is hereby nullified. With those words, a palpable shift rippled through the room. The contracts, the shady agreements, and all the symbols of misplaced ambition were rendered void before the undeniable force of truth. Laura's eyes flared with panic and indignation, but there was no longer an audience willing to indulge her pretense. The once adoring crowd now cast her in the harsh light of accountability, and even Victor, whose wealth had been instrumental to her scheme, appeared contrite as he murmured, I had no idea." The dissonance of his words only deepened her isolation. In the wake of these declarations, the atmosphere transformed from one of festering hostility to hopeful renewal. Influential figures among the guests stood and offered applause, their gestures an unspoken promise of change in an industry long dominated by superficiality. With every passing moment, the elite circle that had once tormented Diane now appeared vulnerable and, perhaps, open to the possibility of redemption. At long last, as the echoes of Nathan's final words reverberated throughout the hall, Diane felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She glanced at Ethan, whose eyes shone with the quiet triumph of a man who had discovered his true place in a challenging world. Together, they had not only faced humiliation but had transformed it into a testament to the enduring power of family, honesty, and true talent. As the reception hall slowly emptied, leaving behind lingering conversations and the soft rustle of changed hearts, Diane and Ethan stepped away from the cacophony of shattered facades. Later that evening, beneath Seattle's starlit sky and the gentle murmur of rain against ancient streets, they found solace in their modest car. The world outside, vast and unpredictable, felt suddenly full of promise and possibility. Diane's heart, once burdened with the weight of humiliation, now throbbed with the affirmation of who she was, a creator, a nurturer, and above all, a person whose worth transcended material accolades. In the quiet intimacy of that moment, Diane whispered to Ethan, "The truth, our love, and our art are more powerful than any false pretense. No matter how dark the world may seem, authenticity will always light our way." Ethan's smile, gentle and filled with unspoken understanding, was all the confirmation she needed. Before their scene faded into the soft embrace of night, a final message resonated in the hearts of all who had borne witness. In a world rife with illusions, what values matter most to you? Share your thoughts below, and let your voice join the chorus of truth.